LeaderCast.
Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Well, I hope all is well with you today. It is Saturday morning, and I'm drinking a hot cup of Bottom Gun coffee from my friends at bottomguncoffee.com. I have another great show lined up for you, but before we get started, I just wanted to mention my new book. It's called You Have the Watch, a guided journal to become a leader worth following. This is a guided journal for leaders that will walk you through an entire year of leadership training. There are 50 themes in the book, and each day you will reflect on a different facet of that theme. This journal is designed to be on your desk at work and for you to read and reflect on for about 15 minutes each morning. Leadership skills are just like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them, and this new journal helps leaders practice those skills. So if you're interested in learning more and pre-ordering this guided journal, go to youhavethewatch.com. Now, for those of you who have already pre-ordered the book, thank you very much. The book is complete and heading to the printers, and it should ship by the end of this month, so thank you. If you are looking for other ways to support what I do on this show, purchase any one of my books at johnsrennie.com. Podcast listeners can always use the discount code DEEP at checkout to get additional savings. Well, that is it. Today, my guest is Dr. Bill Berman. Bill is a returning guest to this show. He is a board-certified psychologist and founder of Berman Leadership Development. In this episode, we talk about talent management and employee retention in the Great Resignation. Right now, over 40% of U.S. workers are actively searching for a new job, and more than half of those people are doing it because they don't like their boss. If this was ever a time for leaders to step up and lead, this is it. You're not going to want to miss this important discussion. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Bill Berman. Bill is a licensed board-certified psychologist and CEO of Berman Leadership Development. He's also the co-author of the leadership book, Influence and Impact, which came out last year. Now, you might remember Bill from episode 73, where we talked in depth about his book and the importance of leadership influence. Well, I've asked Bill to come back on the show to talk about something that's really important right now, and that's talent management and employee retention. Now, these are really important, mostly because of this thing called the Great Resignation. We're going to talk about this on the show. So I'm excited to have him here and talk about these two very important issues. So, Bill, welcome back.
Thanks. Good to see you again, John.
Yeah, great to see you too. I just listened to our old episode, and it was like we just scratched the surface of a lot of the things that you work on and write about. So I really wanted to have you back to dive a little deeper, to talk about this thing about the Great Resignation, because last time you were on, it really hadn't started yet, but now it's really in full force. So maybe we have a good discussion on that. But before we dive deep into that, I wanted to just remind our listeners what you do at Berman Leadership Development.
So Berman Leadership is I call it a bespoke executive development firm, meaning that we provide unique and customizable development opportunities for senior leaders and their teams. So whether it's executive coaching or what we call it consultation to executives, which is more of a sort of support and advisory function, or developmental assessments or selection or onboarding, we do all of those kinds of things that help those leaders really excel. That's our focus.
What kind of companies do you typically work with?
We work with a lot of financial services and healthcare organizations, technology groups, information services, and retail, some retail, but those are the major industries that we focus in.
Okay. So these are important leadership challenges that companies are facing, and they call you in because of your expertise.
They're huge. We also focus a lot on technology focused groups, whether it's within financial services, so it's fintech, or in technology organizations, or in healthcare, because those people need a lot of help with the building the relationships, with the emotional connection, with the empathy, and focus on the employee. So we do a lot of that work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you tend to, my whole career is in technical, whether it's nuclear power or manufacturing high-tech parts. You have a lot of engineers, and engineers have certain challenges with respect to leadership. So it's those empathies. It's having open dialogue, not being closed and introverted, but being a little more extroverted. So yeah, I think when you get into these technology fields, there's even some interesting challenges, unique leadership challenges with technical people. So
absolutely,
yeah.
One of our coaches just wrote a book on coaching with technical and engineering people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I bet that's fascinating because I've done it as far as like leading engineering teams and having all engineers work for me, and it's an interesting group. I mean, it's definitely a challenging thing to do, and it's fun. But when you have a bunch of independent engineers who want to put their mark on everything, it's hard to get them herded in one direction towards completing a project. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, last time you were on, we were talking about your new book, Influence and Impact. So I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about that. How did the launch go? And, what kind of feedback did you get on that book? Because I thought it was fantastic.
It's been really well received. I've gotten a lot of feedback on it from coaches, from HR leaders, from senior executives who have handed it to their employees. I had one who called me up and said, "This is a great book. I have somebody I'm giving it to right now," and it was all about understanding what their job really was and how to excel at what was expected of them. And it helped them sharpen and focus what they were trying to do. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback. The sales are going really well. I would tell people, if you have a choice, don't release a book in the middle of a pandemic. It does create a few problems. Yes. I think if I knew that the pandemic was going to go on for another 9 months, I probably would have delayed it. But we're having a lot of fun with it. So it's been adopted by a number of training programs and corporations. And I'm seeing HR leaders give it out to their employees, which is exactly what we wanted to do.
Yeah, that's a great feeling when you see that, and people, that people are getting that message, and it's an important message. And I just encourage those who hadn't heard the earlier episode, it's episode 73. It's really good, and we get deep into how leaders develop their influence, improve their influence, how they have to adapt their influence as the companies change and as new people come on board. So and then what happens when your influence goes stale, and how do you revamp that? So I encourage you, if you haven't heard that episode, to go back and listen to it, because it's really good. And the book is fantastic. So congratulations. That's great. And it's good to hear that you've had good success with that.
Thanks. Yeah, we're having fun.
It always is fun to launch a book. Like you said, probably not in a pandemic, but I did the same. So, so I know what you're going through. So we alluded to a little bit in the opening, which was this thing called the Great Resignation. You're seeing it as you're working with these big companies. There are a lot of people who are kind of reassessing, their careers based on, them working from home, or maybe they, were laid off, or, everybody's been, basically the whole workforce has been up, there's been upheaval. So what is this Great Resignation, and why are so many people, reconsidering their career right now?
There are a lot of factors that have influenced the Great Resignation, but basically it is a massive shift in how people are approaching their employment and the relationship between work and personal life, and how they balance that out. And there's a lot of people who have essentially decided either it's not worth it, the money I'm getting isn't worth it to do this job, or that my life isn't balanced the way I want it to be. And so they're stepping away from those jobs. They're much more focused. So as an example, 4.5 million people resigned in November alone, just left their jobs, right?
Wow.
When you figure out the numbers of that on an annual basis turns into something like 3 billion in lost productivity.
Wow.
And we're going to see something like 23% of employees leaving their jobs for another job over the next year in 2022.
So you're talking about, a quarter of the workforce, leaving, and that's serious. That's a serious issue when it comes to running your company, right? I mean, if you consider that, if you think your people are your greatest assets, they're the ones that bring future value to your company, and you lose a quarter of those people with all that institutional knowledge just leaving, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some employers think people are fungible, interchangeable, but it's really expensive to interchange people. It takes training, it takes time, it's lost productivity. There are major costs associated with turnover.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that. Yeah, it's interesting because with this pandemic that we had, people got a chance to reassess, to look at their lives. Like you said, there's this balance between work and personal life, right? They had a chance to get a little taste of freedom. I get to work from home. I get to sleep in a little bit. I get to have coffee with my wife, and they're like, this is nice.
It's great. I had a client who said to me, he said, with my first child, I didn't see them take their first steps. I didn't see them starting to talk. I missed all of that stuff. With my second child, I was home and I saw all that. He said, I don't want to miss that if we do a third. I don't want to miss those opportunities. I want to be a part of the family. And I'm hearing that from men a lot, is that they're realizing all of a sudden what they've been missing by getting on a train at 6:30 in the morning and getting home at 7:30 at night. And they're thinking, this isn't the way I want to live my life anymore.
It's almost like our attitudes towards work have changed in the past 2 years. We're thinking differently about it. Like, almost like, because we always, I used to travel a lot in Europe, and they approach work completely different than we do. And not all places in Europe, Absolutely. But a lot of places in Europe where I was always jealous that they had a better work-life balance. And we Americans were like, no, we got to grind. We got to go. We got to work overtime. We got to work the weekends. We got to stay up late. And then I'm looking, I'm in France and I'm like, wait, this looks kind of fun, having a coffee, in the middle of the afternoon, having wine and cheese. I'm like, this is nice. I could do this. And I think we got a glimpse of it as Americans. And we're like, I kind of like this, I kind of like a little change of pace.
I think this was building before the pandemic. I think there were a number of people who were starting to question whether the amount of money they were making was worth the stress they experienced, or whether they really wanted to be doing what they were doing. And I think the pandemic just flipped a switch. It was a tipping point. And all of a sudden people realized we don't have to be in the office to get our work done.
Yes.
We don't have, we're just as productive or more productive when we're working from home, because you don't have those 2 hours or however, I think the average commute is like 45 minutes. So that's an hour and a half every day that you're losing of productivity that most people have devoted to doing more work.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's really powerful. And I think the other thing is the technology was here too. So, this thing happened at a time when the technology was available to do, these Zoom meetings and online and
Absolutely.
And the infrastructure is there for home work, working from home. It's if this happened 10 years ago, even, it would have been almost impossible to do what we're doing now.
But the pandemic also forced people to look at reality differently. So, 3 years ago, if you had done a survey of managers and said, how productive are people when they're working from home? You would have seen overwhelming majority would have said, maybe 60% is productive. we know that's not true. We know people actually produce as well or better when they're from home. Now, it's not that I think people should never have to go into work, because there are real benefits that you get from being in an office and being together with people. The ability to make teamwork, the ability to really connect with people. So for some people, mentoring and building networks is much easier to do in an office than it is to do virtually. So there are definite advantages to working in an office, but it's just not the answer anymore.
Yeah, it really isn't. It's crazy to see how much has changed in 2 years.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, because I think it ties right into what's going on, which is, that talent management and employee retention are now like top of mind for most employers. We're thinking about, okay, 25% of my workforce, or 23 to 25% of my workforce, quarter of them are going to walk out the door in the next few months. So now maybe you had employee retention and talent management in the back of your mind. Well, I imagine it's moved to the front of the mind. Is that what you're hearing from your clients?
Absolutely. That's that holding on to employees and finding good employees, getting the right people in the door and on your staff are the two biggest concerns that I'm hearing in the C-suite in most of the companies I'm working with. I was just talking to a client earlier today who runs a 800-person technology division of a larger organization. And he said that their war for talent is just really hot, and they're really fighting to keep people on and trying to figure out what, besides money and perks, is going to keep people there.
Yeah, wow, it's a real challenge, and like we were saying earlier, this could be your institutional knowledge leaving, quarter of your institutional knowledge walking out the door. This could be a shift to this could impact your culture. It can impact your productivity, impacts your ability to, develop new products, launch new products. There's certain people that have that, that piece of knowledge you absolutely need, and they walk out the door. You're like, what are you going to do?
Yep.
It's a big issue. So how do we need to be thinking about talent management now with all this? What are some things that we, as leaders, that we need to be thinking maybe differently given this environment that we're in with respect to talent management?
It's really interesting because a lot of the things you read focus on what HR needs to do about talent management and talent development. And there are definitely things that the human resources and human capital organizations need to do within these companies. But talent management fundamentally is about relationship management. Leadership is about relationship management. As leaders, we have historically focused on what we do and how we do it. But now leaders have to focus really on why we do it and who we do it with. And so it's about providing people with a sense of a mission, with clear values, with living those values. Values are not just the thing you put on a wall anymore. You have to live them. You have to show them. You have to tell people through your actions how you're living your values. And it has to be about having a connection with your manager. People still leave their jobs for the same basic reasons, which is either they're not making enough money or their boss treats them lousy. Those are the two biggest reasons why people change jobs. They get a better financial opportunity, and they're just sick of being treated badly. So fundamentally, it's about, we want our leaders to treat people with respect and integrity. We want them to have empathy for what their employees are going through. We want them to understand diversity. And these are all leadership characteristics. These are the day-to-day things you do that communicate to someone that that they are a valued talent, right? I can give you, we have to do the things like working from anywhere, hybrid working, flexibility, mobility, what I call interoperabilities, which means you can go anywhere and you have the tools wherever you are to do your job.
Yep.
Those are all clear, right? Those are going to be a given in 2022 and 2023.
Yeah.
We still go back to the fundamentals of how do we treat people? How do we interact with them? How do we help them grow? How do we make this about them? Not how do we just make it about us? So that's really, I think, one of the critical parts of talent management, because it's the managers who are doing the managing. It's not HR. It's us.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
One ping only, please. As I thought, John Rennie's new book, All in the Same Boat, is right over there. It's at allinthesameboatbook.com. Your orders are to get there now. And remember, be careful what you shoot at. Most things in here don't react too well to bullets.
Is your boss a jerk? I understand you're in the hospital, but I'm going to need you to come in today. Do they lack any ability to actually lead people? Oh, it's fine. I'll just find somebody else that can do it, okay? John is offering a new service just for you. For only $10, he will anonymously mail a copy of his best-selling book, I Have the Watch, to your boss with a personal note. Go to IHaveTheWatch.com and enter the discount code BOSS at checkout.
So what you're saying is you can't outsource leadership to HR.
Absolutely not. That's 100% what I'm saying.
Yeah. So that, because that's what some people do, right? They say, well, employee retention, that's or talent management, that's HR's job, right? That's their job to develop all the programs. I'm just going to run my department and get the job done. No, I mean, your job is, as leadership, is to manage the folks that work for you.
Human resources should put in the structure and processes and tools that you need to do those things. But it's up to the managers and the directors and the vice presidents and the executives to make sure those things are done and done well and done with respect.
Yeah. And it sounds like if I'm listening to you talk about what's required to keep great employees, and it's the stuff that always mattered with respect to leading people properly, treating with respect, making sure they understand why they're doing what they're doing, values. You touched on that. That's a really important thing, and I see that more and more with younger employees. I'm a little older. I've had a lot of people working for me over the years, and it seems younger people are very concerned about what are the values of this company I work for, and do they align with my beliefs? And that's something that, as an older manager, I never saw that before, and I'm seeing that more and more with younger employees. Maybe now, I'm saying younger, but now in their 30s, I see 30s and younger. I'm seeing this sort of like, I'm not going to work at this company if we're doing something I don't believe in. And it's really important that they believe in what the company stands for and the mission, of the company. And are you doing things, not just are you doing great things, but are you doing it the right way? And I think that's an interesting switch that I've seen, recently.
Well, I totally agree with you. And one of the ways I think about this is that in our generation, so growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, the idea was that you leave your values, your personal values at home, and you just go in and do your job. If I were 30 something and I was looking at what we had done, I would say that's what caused global warming. That's what caused the food insecurity. That's what's caused all the major problems that we have. That's what's caused all the diversity and equity and justice issues. Why would I continue to do that if that's what we came out of this? So I think they're looking around their world and seeing that things haven't gone quite right. And they're thinking, we need to do this a different way. We need to live our values all the time, not just, on the weekends and evenings.
Yeah. So to me, I think it's great. I mean, having employees holding your feet to the fire to say, okay, well, you said we were going to do it this way. You said you were going to do it the right way. And we're going to make sure we do it the right way. And I think it's not a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing. Absolutely. And I think that, too many like you said, maybe there were things that happened in the past that maybe too many people left their values at home. It's like, all right, I'm just working here. I'm going to do my job. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I'm just going to do my job because I need the money, type of thing. Where I think this is refreshing. I actually do think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we can learn from this. It's just sometimes older leaders, older managers have to almost recalibrate yourself a little bit to this, because it's really important. It's really important to younger employees. And this isn't something that's, optional, or that you can just say, you can't, you've got to be committed. You can't just, say the words. You have to be committed to it, I think, as an organization, if you want people to truly believe in being a part of your company.
Absolutely. 100%. Back in I think it was 1990s, medical interns, physician interns would work 72-hour shifts,
right.
98, 96-hour shifts. And the attitude of the older physicians was, that's what I did. You should do it too.
Yeah.
And in New York, they basically struck and said, we're not going to work that. This is dangerous. This is hazardous to the patients. It's hazardous to us. We're not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And they forced the hospitals to change their policies and practices. And healthcare has not gotten worse. Doctors have not gotten worse. It's still working just fine. But they just wouldn't put up with that. And I think we're seeing the same kind of thing now, but around values.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do see that. As you're just looking out into the world, whether it's companies you're working with or just things that you're reading and seeing, what are you seeing any great examples of people that are doing a really good job with employee retention? What kind of things that they're doing, or I don't know, just maybe any. I mean, obviously we want to lead people correctly and all that, but are you seeing some other ways that people are doing some unique things to keep their talent?
I think what I'm seeing is that the organizations that either clearly have or work hard to have a real purpose, not just, make money and have fun, but change the world for the better, are really succeeding in keeping people on more. I think, hospital systems, I think some pharmaceuticals where they're curing cancer, curing serious longstanding diseases. Vertex Pharmaceuticals is a company that I think is doing a lot in that direction. And it's because that they are changing people's lives, that people want to work there. I see it in manufacturing, though. I see it in companies that are making policy changes. Like I've seen New York Life Insurance do a phenomenal job with making people want to stay there, want to work there, because their approach to diversity, to equity, to justice is really remarkable. I've seen a couple of private equity firms that have registered as B corporations, and their message, it's all about environment sustainability and governance. And they've really put in serious programs to make sure that that's the focus of that organization, and it's working very well. Those are the places where people want to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a friend of mine that is an entrepreneur here in Raleigh, and North Carolina, and he's a certified B corporation, and it's consistent with his brand, but it's also consistent with his values. And he has a lot of younger employees, and they are 100% on board with this is who we are as a company. And I think you touched on something that's really, really important that we sometimes forget, and that is purpose. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be part of making a dent in the universe, right? And we can't forget that. And if we just say, what do you do here? Well, I need you to just file these papers. When I bring you these papers, you file these papers. Nobody wants to be a cog in the wheel. They want to know that they're doing worthwhile work, that their work matters. And can you tie even the most junior employee, can you tie the work that they're doing to the missions and values of your company and how that company is making a difference in the world? When you can do that, then I think people get excited about going to work. They get excited to tell their family about what they're doing, right?
Absolutely.
It's not about making widgets in a factory. I'm in my case, we run a manufacturing plant that builds, we build products for the electrical grid. It's like we're helping keep the lights on. When they go home and tell their families, we're helping keep the lights on. We're helping keep power in hospitals and in schools and in, so they're making a difference by the work that they're doing. And I think when you tie people to a purpose that's bigger than themselves, then they feel excited to come to work and excited to be a part of that. But when they just feel like they're doing a job and what do you do for a living? I pull this lever, or whatever. They don't understand what's happening, why they're doing it. I think when you make that why very clear and the purpose very clear, then people are like, I belong to this company. This is, I believe in this company. This is, where I want to be.
That's 100% right. That's why I say for managers, it's about the who and the why.
Yeah.
You can define who and why you're going to be successful as a manager. Don't worry about the what and the how. That'll happen by itself. That'll just happen as a part of the job.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an exciting time, but I also think that and things have changed. But I think what you've said is really important. Is that the basics of good leadership, the things that we've been writing about for years, right, they still apply today. Yeah. Is that what, we talked a little bit before we started the show? Is that the principles that were taught 60 years ago, right, about treating people with respect and and having these deep relationships? This is still true today. Absolutely.
Being interested in people, being curious about who they are, not just what they can do, but who they are. These are the kinds of, it's stuff your mom would have taught you.
Right.
Be nice to people, right?
Right.
Be curious about them. Be interested in them. Somebody years ago had told me that the best interview I could possibly have when looking for a job is the one where I get the other person to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So it's because it's about being interested in other people and empathy. This is all falls into that category of empathy. We've lost empathy in our culture. There's research that shows that it has gone down over the past 2 decades. And we need to get it back. We need to take the time to understand other people and see the world through their eyes. And if a manager does that, if they take the time to stop and say, what's my employees' experience of whatever's going on in the company right now, they're going to work better with them. They're going to be able to motivate them, and they're going to be able to influence them, to use my book's title, to have a greater impact. They're going to provide that inspiration and that enthusiasm, and influence by showing that they care.
And really, it's fundamentally important. If you think about it, if everyone listening to this show right now, if you think of that, a quarter of your employees are going to walk out the door this year, right? Unless you are leading differently, unless you are having, like you said, those relationships, your people, you develop your people, you have you treat them with respect, and they're connected to your company. You're going to be, it's expensive to hire people and train people and as people leave your company. And if you don't take these things to heart now, this is the time to do it. If you've heard about, things, good leadership practice, and you haven't tried it yet, this is the time to do it, because you're going to be facing a major, migration out of your company if you don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. So I think we covered some pretty important things with respect to this, the great resignation. So I think, leaders, you need to pay attention. These are important topics that are coming up that you need to keep, you need to stay on top of. One of the great things you can do is keep developing your leadership skills. One way is by reading, and one way is by reading Bill's book. Bill, how can people find out about this book? Because it's fantastic. How can people find out about it?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. But the easiest way to get it is to go to my website, www.bermanleadership.com. And there are links to the book. There are links to to where you can buy it. There are links to all the worksheets that you can download to use from the book. And it's a way to get in touch with me also.
Okay, well, we'll put a link in the show notes for that. And again, the book is Influence and Impact, and it's Dr. Bill Berman. I really highly encourage you to find that book, read it, because this is now is more, now's the time to be stepping up your leadership game, because you're going to have a big shift in your workforce. You need to be prepared for it. But everything old is new again. It's the same principles that we've been doing for 60 years. It's a lot of common sense stuff, but it's typically not commonly applied. So our roles as leaders now is to apply these principles, apply this, and make sure that we lead our people well during this time. So, Bill, thank you for coming back on the show and talking about these important issues.
John, it's great to see you, and thanks for having me on. I'm always get excited about this kind of stuff because it's so important. Retention is personal. That's what I'm going to leave people with.
Yeah, I like that. It's very personal. We have to, as leaders, take personal interest in it.
Absolutely.
We can't outsource it to HR, right?
Nope.
That's so true. Well, thanks again for coming on the show.
John, great to see you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, great to see you as well. Well, thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.
Hey there, I'm DC. I host the rock podcast, Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast.
Welcome, explorers of the human experience. This is Let's Talk Soul, and I'm your host, Claudia Monicelli. We're not afraid of the great mysteries of existence here. Soul versus consciousness, we're on it. Spirituality versus science, we've got that covered too. Join us in navigating these profound topics with wisdom, curiosity, and a dash of audacity. Whether you're a spiritual veteran or just starting your journey, Let's Talk Soul is your passport to the unknown. Let's Talk Soul, diving into the depths of the human spirit. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.